For 5 years, the world believed John Darwin was dead. His family mourned him, his friends buried him, his wife collected his life insurance, and authorities closed the case. There was just one problem. John Darwin wasn't dead. In fact, while everyone believed he had drowned at sea, he was secretly living a double life, and for years he got away with it. Until one tiny mistake destroyed everything. This is the story of the man who faked his own death for money. In the early 2000s, John Darwin looked like an ordinary man. He was a former teacher living in England with his wife Anne. To outsiders, their life seemed normal, but appearances can be deceiving. Behind closed doors, the couple was drowning in debt. They owned several properties, loans were stacking up, bills were becoming impossible to pay. The financial pressure was crushing them. Every month brought another problem, another payment, another reminder that they were running out of options. Most people would try to earn more money. Some would sell their assets, others would declare bankruptcy. But John and Anne believed they had found a better solution, a solution that sounded insane. What if John simply disappeared? The plan revolved around one simple idea. If John died, Anne could collect his life insurance. Then they could start over with a clean slate. The challenge was convincing everyone that he was actually dead. That's when John turned to one of his hobbies, kayaking. On March 21, 2002, John supposedly went kayaking along the coast. Hours later, his kayak was discovered drifting in the water, empty. There was no sign of John, no body, no witnesses, nothing. Rescue teams searched extensively, the sea, the coastline, nearby areas, but John Darwin had vanished. Authorities eventually concluded that he had drowned. The case was treated as a tragic accident. Friends grieved, family members mourned, and the world moved on. Except John wasn't dead, not even close. What happened next sounds unbelievable. For years, John secretly lived while the rest of the world believed he was gone. And here's the craziest part. He wasn't hiding halfway across the globe. For much of that time, he remained surprisingly close to home, close enough to observe the life he had supposedly left behind. Imagine that. You're legally dead. People cry at your funeral. Your family spends years believing you've drowned. Meanwhile, you're sitting in a nearby property reading newspapers, watching television, waiting for the insurance money to arrive. And arrive it did. Anne successfully collected hundreds of thousands of dollars through insurance payouts and related benefits. The scheme appeared to be working perfectly. The debts that once threatened to destroy them were disappearing. For the first time in years, the couple could breathe. But success created a new problem. Once they got away with it, they wanted more. Eventually, John and Anne decided they didn't just want money, they wanted freedom, a fresh start, a completely new life. Their destination was Panama, thousands of miles away from England, thousands of miles away from anyone who knew their secret. There, they dreamed of building a new future together, a future where John Darwin no longer had to hide, a future funded by the very fraud they believed nobody would ever discover. For a while, it seemed like they had won. The debts were gone. The insurance money was secured. Authorities believed John was dead, the perfect crime. At least that's what they thought, because their entire scheme would eventually collapse because of something almost nobody would expect: a photograph. The biggest scams in history rarely fail because of brilliant detectives. Most fail because criminals get comfortable, and that's exactly what happened here. While living in Panama, John and Anne posed for a photograph together. Just a normal picture, a smiling couple enjoying life. Nothing unusual, unless you're supposed to be dead. Eventually, the image surfaced online. When investigators discovered it, they immediately began asking questions. If John Darwin had drowned years earlier, who exactly was standing beside Anne? The deeper authorities dug, the worse things became. Financial records, travel documents, property information. Everything started pointing toward the same conclusion. John Darwin had never died. The dead man was alive, and the walls were closing in. By late 2007, John knew the game was over, so he attempted one final gamble. He walked into a police station and claimed he had amnesia. According to John, he couldn't remember the previous years of his life. Conveniently, that included the years everyone thought he was dead. Investigators weren't convinced. The evidence was overwhelming. The insurance money, the secret life, the photograph, the financial trail, the lies. The story collapsed almost immediately. John Darwin was arrested. Soon after, Anne was arrested as well. Their dream life was over. In 2008, both John and Anne were convicted for their roles in the fraud. They received prison sentences. The money disappeared. The freedom disappeared, and the future they had spent years building vanished overnight. But the biggest loss wasn't financial, it was personal. Their own family members had genuinely believed John was dead. They had mourned him, cried for him, grieved for years, only to discover they had been manipulated the entire time. In the end, John Darwin achieved the one thing he wanted most. He escaped his debts, but he paid a much bigger price. His reputation, his relationships, his freedom, and years of his life, all for money. John Darwin thought he had found the perfect shortcut: fake your death, collect the insurance money, disappear forever. For 5 years, it looked like he had succeeded, but every lie eventually comes due, and when the bill arrived, it was far more expensive than he ever imagined. Because sometimes, the price of money is everything. If you enjoyed this episode of The Price of Money, subscribe to my channel and I'll see you in the next video.